Hello, I'm Josh George. College football here. It's middle of the season. Doing a little I've done a little research. Look, this week coming up here, week 9 is going to be a great week of college football. It's really hard making predictions. You feel like anybody can beat anybody at any given time. You feel like every game is up for grabs. I do feel sorry a little bit. I do feel slightly responsible for getting Matt Wells fired. If you watch my other video from this week, you will understand. Um, but with no further ado, this is a top 25 video. This is my top 25. I'm going to talk about 25 teams that I think are the 25 best teams in college football according to the College Football Playoff Committee standards, which are this. So I'm just going to read them to you. A team should establish they've established a committee that will be instructed to place an emphasis on winning conference championships, strength of schedule, and head-to-head comparisons when comparing teams with similar records and pedigree as part of the resume. So, these are the teams that, using this formula, I have come up with for the top 25 for this point, and I'm going to talk about what direction they're heading in and why they're here. Number 25, the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana. Look, they're not a bad team. They're number 1 in the Sun Belt Conference. They're ahead of, which is kind of like that conference championship thing. They're ahead of Coastal Carolina and App State. Their only loss is 38-18 against Texas. And the Ragin' Cajuns, they just, I know they're 113th in strength of schedule, but I just feel like a team from the Sun Belt will end up in the top 25, and right now I think the team in the top 25 should be the Ragin' Cajuns. Now Oregon State is 24, and everyone just went, what? Well, they're tied for first in the Pac-12 right now with a 5-2 record, okay? They're 56th in strength of schedule, so they do have that. And when I was comparing them with the group of teams, Louisiana and Penn State, those kind of bottom 3, well, they got the nod over because of how well they've been doing in conference, and just when it came down to little things like the resume, I just felt like it was better. Now, Virginia has not been a bad football team, 49th in strength of schedule. They had a 42-14 win over Illinois, which is a comparable game with Penn State, which is another reason why they got the nod and got in here. So they've got a comparable win. They have 2 losses to Wake Forest and North Carolina, and both teams, really, North Carolina was ranked 20th when they played them, and I have Wake later in this video. So Virginia definitely deserves a spot in the top 25, but we'll see if they trend up or down. I imagine that they will trend down. Iowa State, a team that has lost to 2 other teams that I have ranked, and they've beaten a team that I have ranked. They beat Oklahoma State, and they're 22nd in the FPI, Football Power Index, and they're putting up 38.2 points per game, which shows that they have really good offensive pedigree. Their defense has been known for doing really well, and they're 47th in strength of schedule. So there you go, an undefeated San Diego State. Now the reason that they're so far down for a 7-0 team is their biggest win is the 31-33 win over Oregon State. So there is that. And but their strength of schedule is 119th and the pedigree of the Mountain West is just not there. So they're at 21. At 20th, Utsa, UTSA. And UTSA is just, they're 7-0. They deserve to be ranked, but their strength of schedule is 114th. Their opponents haven't been that good. Now, the reason I have them above some of the other teams is they've done well in Conference USA, and their strength of record is higher. Baylor Baylor's 19th. I think they are at a really good spot. Randa's defensive pedigree is really good and has looked really good this season, and that's definitely why they do deserve this spot here. And truthfully, when it comes down to it, I mean, Baylor's kind of a toss-up. We don't know if they're trending up or down right now. So there's that. Auburn at 18. Auburn's one of those teams that everything lies ahead of them. They could beat Ole Miss, beat Bama, be in the SEC title. But, I mean, we'll really find out in this shootout. Bo Nix and pedigree and things like that. The SEC has all the pedigree. And so they have kind of gotten the nod for those reasons to 18. Now 17, Pittsburgh. Look, they've got Kenny Pickett has looked really good. They're number one in the Coastal. They do have that funky loss to a Group of 5 team in Western Michigan, which is a really bad head-to-head loss and a head-to-head comparison to some of the other teams. And when you look at kind of who they've lost to in the MAC and things, it kind of, as a one loss, that's a bad loss. It really drops them. 16, OSU. OSU has a really good strength of schedule. There's probably an argument to be had for OSU to be a little bit higher, but their O-line just hasn't been good. It hasn't had the pedigree, even though they've got number 10 in strength of schedule, which is number 2 out of one-loss teams. But even with that, when you look at their loss to Iowa State, it was a close, hard-fought game. It just comes down to, have we really seen them at their best? And I don't think so yet. They could trend up, but right now I've got them at 16. 15, undefeated, Southern Methodist, good quarterback, and a good tight end, Tanner Mordecai and Grant Calcaterra. But the problem is their strength of schedule is 122. That's why they're not up with some of the other undefeated teams. They've got to get that strength of schedule up, otherwise going up is going to be really hard for them. Now, number 14, Texas A&M. Texas A&M has the best win in college football. They beat the number 1 team, Alabama, or at least Alabama when they were number 1. And that's a huge deal. They've been winning games. It's like they've completely turned around. Right now they're 35th in total defense, and the pedigree is there, so they're at 14th. 13, an Iowa team. A lot of people will have Iowa rated higher, but they're 116th in strength of schedule and have a bad loss to Purdue, and they punt more than any other top 15 team. So when you kind of group these teams together and you look at some of the other one losses and things, Iowa just slowly gets moved back. You're like, well, I think this team is a little bit better than them. So Iowa's at 13. Now 12, I've got Kentucky Wildcats. Look, Mark Stoops has done a great job on defense. He's found some things on offense. They're the only team, I think they're actually one of 2 teams, to cover against Georgia. That's their only loss, and Georgia's a really good team. You'll see where they're ranked here later, but it's not a bad loss, and they fought hard, looked good all the way, kind of a thing, but they still didn't show that they deserved to be in a college football playoff kind of a thing, so 12. 11 for Ole Miss. Ole Miss honored the Mannings and things like that, which kind of does show some of that pedigree thing, but honestly, it's more of an on-the-field thing, and on the field, they have looked really good on offense, look like they've got the best offense in the nation. Can their defense rally? I think they're going to be in a shootout against Auburn, and that's really going to determine if they hit the elevator up or down for Ole Miss. And that loss to Alabama just wasn't a good thing for them. It's kind of keeping them out of the top 10. Now Notre Dame. Look, Notre Dame is number 15th in the Football Power Index. They've only lost one game, and that's to an undefeated Cincinnati team. They're fourth in strength of schedule. And if this team loses, they'll drop some. But right now, they're right on the doorstep, and they're probably an underrated team. It's mainly that eye test and that thing, well, we don't know what's going on with the quarterbacks, and it's all about the best teams. When you interview and you're looking for the resume, it's like, I am crowning this team as a national champion or as a playoff team in the top 4. This is my 10th pick for it. Based on the interview, they just didn't look like it, even though all the numbers are there. So they're in the top 10, and we will see going forward with Notre Dame. Now, number 9, Ohio State. Yes, I have Ohio State down on the list a little farther than the AP poll. Kevin Wilson is a great offensive coordinator, but they lost to Oregon, and they really didn't lead. They really didn't ever have control of that game. Oregon beat them from the start. Yes, they've been dominating the Big Ten, but technically there are Big Ten teams that they have yet to play that are ahead of them. So technically they're not number 1 in their conference, and that pushes them down to Oregon. Oregon, who is first in their conference. Oregon does have head-to-head with Ohio State. Oregon's one loss is a bad loss to Stanford, and it is a loss, and it does look bad for Mario Cristobal. But and that loss is holding them back. But Oregon is at 8. At 9, 7-0 Wake Forest in the ACC, number 1 in a power conference here. This is a team that I can't believe is so far down there. Now, we'll see what happens to this team as the season goes on, but right now, this week, they have found a way to win football games in Power 5 football, and their strength of schedule is 40th. It's not bad. They're up there, and they've got a top 10 defense right now, so 7th. Cincinnati at 6. People are losing their minds. I'm telling you, the committee is not going to just put Cincinnati at number 2 because they beat Notre Dame. Okay, I'm telling you that right now. Cincinnati, Desmond Ridder is a good football, but their strength of schedule's 50th. They're playing a bunch of American Conference teams. Really, they technically don't have a Power 5 win. They beat an independent Notre Dame as their best win right now, and it's a huge win. But it's just not as good as some of the other wins. They have to keep going. They have to go undefeated, and really they need some of the teams in front of them, in my opinion, to lose. Now, number 5, I have Alabama. Yes, they have a loss to Texas A&M. They're still the most efficient team in college football. They have the number 1 efficiency rating on offense, and they're improving each and every week on defense. They turned it on against Tennessee, but they do have a loss, so I have them at 5. Number 4, Oklahoma. Look, the Sooners have looked really inconsistent on defense at times and really inconsistent on offense. They've changed out quarterbacks. There's just a lot going on in campus. They even had Monday off. They kind of had a come-to-Jesus thing happen. Like, I mean, they're kind of lucky that they don't have to face a head coach this week, essentially, in Texas Tech. But they're winning games, 8-0, and winning matters. And when you have 8-0 on your resume, you should be above teams that are not 8-0. I mean, and you have the strength of schedule to do it. And they're 15th in strength of schedule, according the fifth in the FPI. Excuse me. So they're a top 5 team as far as the football power index is concerned. And I've got them at 4th because they keep winning those games and they've got the talent. They've got the 247 talent has them at 3rd. And they've been playing Power 5 football and winning games. Michigan State is who I've got at 3. And I know people are like, well, look at where they are in the Big Ten. They're at the top of the Big Ten. And this week will show they get to host Michigan. Okay? They are undefeated in Power 5 football. And at the end of the day, that's what's got to matter. Now, number 2, Michigan. They're higher than Michigan State in the 247 talent composite. They're predicted to win the game. They're favorites against them. And so that speaks to pedigree. And they'd be favored in a lot of games against a lot of teams that are in the top 25. When I ran the Caesars Palace favorite, the formula that they use. I found that out, and it looks like that they do deserve to be a top 2 team and in the playoffs. Now Georgia's number one defense in the country, best by far, best on paper, best with the eye test. They check all the boxes, and they will probably be in the top 4, depending on how they do in the SEC championship. I'm Josh George. This was my top 25 for week 9.